Alright, so part two to this fiasco. So like I said, my truck was not starting, or it would start, but it would not consistently stay on. I end up pulling out of this TA. I get less than 100 yards before she's dying on me again. At that point, I'm off on this side road, and I figure, you know what? Obviously this is going to be an issue. It's not going to warm up. It's not going to work itself out. So what am I going to do? I'm going to back in. I'm going to back up and go back through this exit of this TA, which was kind of a side exit. It wasn't the main exit, but it was pretty much. By the end of it, I ended up blocking this exit. Before that, here I am trying to creep. I can get about 12, 15 feet with each time I turn it on and start the truck. My battery's low. That was mainly because of the cold air, not so much running my heater at night, because I do that plenty, and this truck starts fine in the morning. But before you know it, there's a cop behind me flashing his sirens, and so I'm sitting here. He doesn't even get out of his car. A minute, 2 minutes goes by. I finally am honking. I'm not going to get out and come talk to you in these negative temperatures. It's still dark. It's like 4 in the morning. He finally rolls up. What seems to be the problem? First thing I say is, man, I'm from California. I've never dealt with these temperatures before. My truck won't stay on. So he pretty much backs up behind me and kind of sidles with me as I kind of back the truck up, and I finally start making my way back up into the exit. And I figured, hey, at least I'll be off the road. I'll be in the TA. I shouldn't have even moved from the spot. I should not have even moved from the frickin' spot. But what do you know? Like I said, California kid in Minnesota, recipe for disaster. So finally, I'm sitting here frustrated as all hell. I'm literally screaming at myself like this is not funny, like cursing myself. Besides all that, my truck is freezing. That was the thing. I woke up that morning completely warm with my blankets until I saw my breath and realized I'm in trouble here. All my water bottles are pretty much frozen. This is not typical. This is not. You don't normally deal with this stuff. But again, my truck died in negative temperatures. At least I was at a TA. I wasn't in the middle of freaking nowhere at a rest stop. With no amenities or anything like that. So this cop, I finally get out and I'm telling him, I'm frustrated from this whole deal. But on top of all that, I can't feel my toes. I'm freaking out for my truck. I'm freaking out for this delivery, which is a JIT delivery, just in time. It was supposed to be there at 4:30. I had it all lined up between going all the way across the freaking country, and I thought I had, my ducks in a row, but I obviously didn't. And this cop lets me sit in the back of his car for about 10 minutes while I warm up, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna jump back in. I'm gonna try to get it going again. And so I jump back in. Nothing's working, staying on less than 45 seconds. He finally comes up to me, he's like, hey man, I gotta get out of here. Turns out he was ending his shift. He gave me a tow truck number, and by that point I called Swift. I did my roadside call, and the girl was pretty much telling me, get inside, leave the truck, get inside, get warm, and we'll deal with it from there. So I get inside, I'm sitting at the Country Pride, I'm ordering hot water after hot water cup just to warm my hands, and I finally get some food, and now I'm pretty much the guy who's blocking the exit. I'm sitting here watching all these trucks go back and forth, having to back up as they see me. I had my 3 triangles set up kind of around the bend because it was kind of a curve before you could even see me blocking this exit. And I finally decide, I'm going to give these truckers a little more of a heads up, and I kind of line up my triangles completely blocking this way. I ended up going out a few hours later, and what do you know? Some asshole trucker, of course, ran over one of my triangles. Whether it was to be an asshole or because he was trying to, fandangle his way through and, cut it the wrong way. Either way, I was kind of pissed about that because it's like, here I am, the guy who's stuck, the guy who can't make his money, the guy who can't run his miles, the guy who can't deliver his load. You're the guy whose truck is working and all you have to do is just turn around, and that's the inconvenience for you, so you're going to run over my triangle. The whole thing about all this was, it was the last day of the year. I told myself I'm not going to spend the last day of the year pissed off. I'm not going to spend the first day of the new year pissed off. So I was totally going with the flow, I finally get the road call, and turns out, here's the thing, 7 hours later, I talked to my driver manager. He's like, yeah, you should probably go into the TA and just kind of touch base with them. Turns out I was not even in the queue to get this truck moved or fixed, because a roadside call is for being outside of the TA, anywhere outside. But the fact that I was on the company premises, on the business premises, I was supposed to have checked in. So already 7 hours later, I wasn't even in line to get this crap fixed. So what am I going to do at this point? Luckily, after hanging out in the driver's lounge and hanging out and bullshitting with all these other truckers at the diner and all that stuff, turns out the assessment is my fuel gelled, my diesel. When you hit, one thing I learned, if you're at 20 degrees or under, you keep your truck on. That was one thing I learned. I will never forget that again. I'll never make this mistake again. It was a very time-consuming lesson. It lost me out on about 3 days of shifts, of wages. I may or may not get paid the $50 a day downtime for all this crap. I don't know. I still have to talk to my driver leader about it. But luckily, we couldn't even move. Okay, I met this kid Floyd, who's a trucker from Missouri, lives in Florida. He's about to give up trucking, go back to school, go back to be an officer in the military, something like that. And he had a flatbed. He had chains. He said he'd be down to hook me up and drag me out. We initially hook up the truck. We cannot get my truck moved because my air tanks are empty. We can't even run my truck long enough to get my air tanks full to release the brakes to pull it out from under the trailer. So luckily, another trucker tells us to take my glad hands to his glad hands, pop them together. It'll fill up my tanks. What do you know? It worked. We got my truck, my tractor moved. We got it parked, and then he went and hooked up to my trailer, moved my trailer right next to mine. So finally, one of the aspects of the whole ordeal was over. I was not blocking the exit anymore. Another awesome factor is Floyd had an extra triangle that he got when he initially got his truck. There was an extra reflective triangle. So now the one that I just had broken, I now have all three again. So I was stoked on that. I ended up buying Floyd about 3 meals out of this whole deal. Another thing was the TA was not going to be able to fix my truck until like the next morning of New Year's Day. And so we decided to go to an Applebee's, have some drinks New Year's Eve. And then we took a cab there, and then someone told us there's another bar across the way called Maynard. So we figured, hey, let's walk. So we walked, really frigid temperatures, and we're actually walking along the freeway at this point because there's this little pond we could have crossed. I see our footsteps across it already. And I'm telling him, hey, let's cross by this pond. I kind of know it's not a good idea to walk along this little freeway, highway. And it's like, no, I don't want to fall through. So we walk along the freeway. A cop pulls up, flashes his lights. He gets out. First thing I hear is, oh, no, not you again. It's the same cop from that morning who helped me out. And so we had to both give him our licenses just for protocol sake, make sure we're not felons or have warrants. But he pretty much dropped us off at this other bar. And we were able to have a New Year's Eve, which was really awesome. And then we got back to the TA, and I ended up falling asleep on the driver lounge floor, which again, my truck was freezing. It's like sleeping in a freezer, so I was not going to sleep in my truck. My truck wasn't even in the shop yet, but I did finally wake up and find out that my truck was in the shop, that it was good to go. So it was pretty much exactly 12 hours later, so around noon or so, I was able to get my truck moved, kept that stuff running. I slept in it that night. I was supposed to get up early that morning to go to my delivery. I still didn't have confirmation on when I could deliver it. And I finally make my way the next day around noon after sleeping in. You know, I don't know what it is, but when it's cold out, you do not want to start your day. When you got a nice warm truck you're sitting in, you do not want to leave it. So I finally make my way to the customer, or the customer, the final destination. First thing I see is all inbound deliveries are from 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. Right now it's about 1 p.m. And so I'm kind of freaked out about that. Turns out they cannot accept it that day, which was yesterday. So I had to spend another 16 hours waiting in my truck. And I finally got a knock on the door this morning, which was, can't even explain. That knock indicated you're rolling again. You're good to go. You're getting out of this freaking state. So they got that all unloaded. I had to do a local swap from the SWFT, I had to do a T-call, pick it up from the SWFT terminal down south of St. Paul. About 30 miles from there is here where I'm at now, Chaska. So they're unloading that now at a bread company, some grains. And then I am going about 2.5 hours next to the Wisconsin border, picking up a load, going to Birmingham, Alabama. So I'm finally getting out of Minnesota. I'm getting out of this cold. and it has been one hell of a time.